Have you ever stopped to wonder why you seem to absorb the emotions of everyone around you until it feels like you can barely breathe? Why joy turns to sorrow in your chest without warning, or how someone's unspoken pain lingers in your body as if it were your own? The empath, that exquisitely sensitive soul who feels every vibration of human emotion, isn't simply blessed or cursed with a mystical gift. According to Carl Jung, what you're experiencing isn't spiritual enlightenment at all, but a trap, one of humanity's most devastating psychological patterns. And in this modern age of collective anxiety, social chaos, and narcissistic rage, empaths are drowning faster than ever before, silently carrying what the rest of the world refuses to face. But what if that same overwhelming sensitivity you've been taught to hide is in truth your greatest untapped power waiting to awaken? Imagine for a moment that you were never meant to be broken. Empaths aren't fragile healers doomed to absorb the world's pain. They are mirrors reflecting the hidden shadows of humanity itself. Jung revealed that all the darkness, shame, and fear that people deny within themselves are unconsciously projected outward. And you, the empath, become the living container for those exiled emotions. That suffocating empathy that leaves you trembling, the exhaustion, the anxiety attacks, the terrifying sense of losing yourself. It's not weakness. It's a sign that your unconscious mind has been flooded with burdens that were never yours to bear. This is why we're seeing an epidemic of empath-narcissist trauma bonds spreading through relationships everywhere. Those consumed by their own inner void seek out empaths like magnets. They need someone to carry their unbearable shadow, someone whose boundaries are so porous, so open, that they'll absorb anything to keep the peace. And the empath, desperate to soothe the pain of others, becomes the perfect host for another's unresolved chaos. But Jung discovered something revolutionary, something that changes everything. When an empath stops being a silent victim and begins consciously reflecting back what they've absorbed, they transform into something far more powerful than any narcissist could imagine. Your suffering was never meaningless. It's a coded message from the depths of your psyche, a signal screaming for transformation. Through Jung's process of individuation, you begin to alchemize this so-called curse into sovereign strength. You'll uncover why your sensitivity exists, how to forge boundaries that cannot be broken, and why awakened empaths strike fear into those who once manipulated them. Ready to understand why you were never meant to heal the world's wounds alone? Then let's begin with the unbearable weight of feeling everything. The empath who absorbs emotions like a sponge soaking up water, not by choice, but by nature. You walk into a room and instantly feel the tension humming beneath every smile. A stranger's anger radiates like heat against your skin. Their anxiety becomes your racing heartbeat. Their despair sinks into your chest like a heavy stone you can't release. This heightened emotional intelligence isn't the blessing everyone claims it to be. It's the hidden price of truly feeling everything. According to Jung's research, it's a state of psychological porousness, a condition so delicate it leaves you defenseless against the world's invisible storms of pain. What most people call being too sensitive is, in fact, a deep openness of the psyche that absorbs everything it touches. Here's what nobody ever tells you about being an empath. Your suffering was never entirely your own. The sadness that weighs on you, the tension that creeps into your body for no reason, even that familiar wave of exhaustion. It's not just fatigue, it's emotional absorption overload. You're holding energies and feelings that were never meant for you to carry. Those sudden anxiety spikes that appear out of nowhere, they're not random. You're tuning into what scientists describe as emotional contagion. The unconscious transmission of feeling across human networks, like invisible threads binding us all together. Your hypersensitivity to others' moods isn't mystical, though it feels like it. It's biology in motion. Your mirror neurons working relentlessly, reflecting back every emotional signal around you until the boundaries blur. In this heightened state, you literally cannot tell where your pain ends and another's begins. The empath experiences life through a nervous system without filters. Where others have sturdy walls, you exist with open doors and unguarded windows, constantly receiving. This kind of emotional intelligence, so often praised as rare and beautiful, slowly becomes a curse when every interaction drains the last of your energy reserves. Depression deepens, not because you are broken, but because you are processing not only your own shadow, but fragments of countless others. The endless overwhelm isn't weakness. It's the inevitable cost of perceiving far beyond ordinary human limits. Yet buried inside this suffering lies a profound and forgotten truth. This so-called curse has an ancient purpose. The empath serves as humanity's unconscious mirror. That unbearable sensitivity you fought against your entire life. It's on the verge of becoming your greatest strength. But first, you must face what Jung called the shadow. The shadow isn't merely a collection of negative feelings. It represents everything humanity refuses to acknowledge about itself. The shame, the envy, the cruelty, the fear. Jung discovered that every human being carries within them this psychic vault of disowned traits, a repository of what the conscious mind cannot bear to see. Empaths don't just sense these shadows, they become living containers for the collective unconscious itself. Through decades of analytical psychology, Jung mapped this hidden landscape of the psyche and found that the unconscious mind communicates through projection. We literally cast our repressed darkness onto others like film on a screen. That person whose anger suddenly overwhelms you. They're projecting their shadow onto your permeable mind. Jung called this the most primitive defense mechanism known to humanity, and empaths, with their psychological porousness, are the perfect targets for these projections. But the collective unconscious runs deeper than any single person's shadow. It's the inherited psychic structure containing all of humanity's unspoken pain, the buried memories, the cultural fears, the ancient archetypes that echo through generations. When you walk into a room and feel an inexplicable dread, you're not imagining it. You're tuning into the weight of collective repression that stretches across centuries, a resonance of suffering that only the empath can truly feel. Jung's model shows that empaths unconsciously mirror these hidden aspects, turning the unseen into something painfully visible through their own suffering. Every wound you feel, every wave of despair that doesn't seem to belong to you, becomes a reflection of humanity's buried shadow. This is why shadow work often feels impossible for empaths, because you're not just sorting through your own pain, but through a labyrinth of shadows that were never yours to begin with. The unconscious mind, as Jung explained, cannot easily distinguish between genuine personal emotion and the collective darkness that's been absorbed. It treats both as real, forcing you to relive what the world refuses to process. Jung warned that without conscious awareness, highly sensitive individuals can become psychic dumping grounds for the disowned traits of their surroundings. You begin to carry what entire groups or relationships refuse to acknowledge. But understanding this mechanism changes everything. Once you realize that you've been reflecting the shadow instead of creating it, the dynamic shifts. The true question then emerges: what if your so-called curse isn't a flaw at all, but humanity's desperate attempt to see itself through you? Narcissism, in this context, hunts for empaths with the precision of a heat-seeking missile finding its target. The shadow you've been absorbing, it has a name, a face, and a meticulously constructed mask of grandeur, hiding a core of shame so vast it could swallow the world whole. The narcissist doesn't merely manipulate. They build an elaborate false persona, a carefully engineered facade designed to channel their unbearable inner darkness directly into your permeable psyche. And here's what Jung's research uncovers beneath that facade. Empaths and narcissists form a toxic bond through mutual projection. The narcissist transfers their vulnerability, their fear of exposure, their buried humanity onto the empath. In turn, the empath unknowingly projects their golden shadow, their strength, confidence, and healthy self-interest onto the narcissist's illusion. It becomes a tragic exchange of light and dark, power and emptiness. From there, a perfect storm of psychological manipulation unfolds. The gaslighting begins subtly. You're too sensitive. You're imagining things. These phrases aren't random. They're precision tools, crafted to destabilize perception and dismantle self-trust. Each doubt weakens the boundaries that are already fragile. Meanwhile, the narcissist engages in a kind of emotional vampirism, feeding on the empath's energy exchange while maintaining their grandiose mask of superiority. But here lies the devastating truth. Narcissism depends on the empath's mirror to survive. Without it, the narcissist would be forced to confront their own unbearable shadow. Every burst of anger, every eruption of rage, every act of manipulation is fueled by the terror of seeing their true self reflected back. The empath becomes a psychic conduit for all that the narcissist refuses to feel, a living vessel for borrowed pain. This codependent fusion creates a closed psychological loop where neither side faces authenticity. Empaths often remain trapped for years, convinced they can heal or redeem the narcissist through compassion. Yet you cannot heal someone who uses your empathy as a weapon. The cruel paradox is that the more the empath awakens, the more fiercely the narcissist resists. The manipulation intensifies precisely when the empath begins to reclaim power, when they threaten to stop serving as a convenient container for projected shame. And the only way out? It begins not with peace, but with a betrayal so profound, it shatters every illusion you've ever clung to. And in that shattering, something extraordinary begins. Individuation, the birth of your true self, starts exactly where betrayal tears through your last illusion. That moment when the narcissist's mask finally falls isn't the end you once feared. It's the breaking open of everything false. It feels like destruction, yet it's not. It's the first stage of psychological alchemy. Jung described it as a death and rebirth, the necessary dissolution every empath must endure to reclaim their authentic essence. Here's what truly happens in that inner crucible. The immense suffering you've carried, the heartbreak, confusion, and despair, becomes your prima materia, the raw material required for transformation. Just as ancient alchemists sought to turn base metals into gold, your soul begins its own alchemical process. But for empaths, the transformation is purely psychological. You are transmuting pain into wisdom, unconscious absorption into conscious integration. Those overwhelming emotions that once drowned you are no longer enemies. They become the catalyst for developing psychological sovereignty. Through this process, something within you shifts. The self, your true center, not the fragile ego built from others' reflections, begins to emerge through the deeply personal work of shadow integration. Yet this is no easy task. You must sift through layer after layer of inherited emotion and projection, asking again and again, is this mine or theirs? This stage, known as separatio in alchemy, is both delicate and excruciating. Every emotion must be held up to the light, every pattern examined with ruthless honesty. Slowly, as you reclaim each authentic feeling from the heap of others' energies, something profound unfolds. You begin to see yourself clearly, perhaps for the first time. Individuation transforms the empath's sensitivity into a higher form of perception. No longer do you absorb unconsciously. You begin to discern consciously. The boundaries you forge are not heavy walls of defense, but alchemical vessels, strong containers capable of holding your psychological gold while remaining open enough for real human connection. This is ego dissolution, not into chaos, but in service of something infinitely greater, the emergence of your sovereign self. Jung revealed that suffering itself serves a sacred purpose. There is no coming to consciousness without pain. For empaths, this truth cuts deeper than most will ever understand. Your pain was never random, nor was it meaningless. It was your psyche's urgent attempt to force transformation, to awaken you from the dream of self-sacrifice. Every narcissistic relationship, every encounter with an energy vampire, every moment of unbearable emotional overload was secretly guiding you toward this alchemical threshold. And the alchemy completes when realization dawns. You were never meant to heal others by carrying their shadows. Your true role was always to model what it looks like when someone faces their own darkness, does their inner work, and emerges whole. The empath who steps out of this fire is nearly unrecognizable. The victim who once absorbed everyone's pain no longer exists. In their place stands a sovereign being, wielding conscious compassion like a precise and deliberate instrument. This transformed empath doesn't lose sensitivity. They master it. What once felt like a curse now crystallizes into shamanic wisdom, the ability to see clearly through every mask. And compassion itself transforms, no longer a desperate urge to fix or rescue, but a calm, knowing force that flows from wholeness. It becomes boundaried love. Love that is powerful precisely because it has limits. The awakened empath no longer bleeds empathy uncontrollably. They practice discerning empathy, consciously choosing when and how to engage, rather than being swept away by the emotional storms of others. This is compassion with clarity, care without collapse. Such conscious empathy can witness suffering without becoming it, can hold space for others without losing the self within it. It can love deeply without enabling dysfunction. And here lies the paradox. This very restraint, this conscious containment, is what makes the sovereign empath so dangerous to unconscious systems that thrive on projection and denial. They mirror truth, not the soft, convenient illusions people tell themselves, but the raw, unfiltered reality that hides beneath every carefully constructed persona. When an individuated empath enters a room, their integrated shadow vibrates like a tuning fork, resonating only with what's real and effortlessly exposing what's false. They have become living mirrors of consciousness, reflecting back to others the exact truths they've tried so hard to conceal. Truth itself flows differently through someone who has faced their own darkness. The empath's inner sovereignty means they are no longer a blank screen for other people's projections. When someone attempts to deposit their disowned pain or shadow into them, it simply doesn't stick anymore. This truth-telling power isn't loud, forceful, or aggressive. It radiates naturally from embodied wisdom, from the steady confidence of someone who knows exactly who they are, and, perhaps more importantly, who they are not. The mysticism of the awakened empath is not detached or abstract. It's grounded and profoundly practical. They embody the truth that authentic connection can only exist between two whole beings. Their mastery of resonance allows for intimacy without entanglement, compassion without self-sacrifice, truth without cruelty. They have turned their once overwhelming sensitivity into spiritual authority, a quiet but undeniable strength that threatens every false structure, every manipulative system, every unconscious pattern built on deception. This is why narcissists fear the awakened empath. This is why conscious boundaries feel like rejection to emotional vampires. The sovereign empath sees through everything: the masks, the stories, the games. The empath who completes individuation doesn't merely transform their own life. They ignite something far greater in the collective unconscious. Like a stone dropped into still water, their awakening sends ripples through humanity's shared psychic field, reaching far beyond personal transformation. And this is not mystical fantasy. It's an observable psychological phenomenon. Jung himself traced this pattern across myths and cultures worldwide. The collective unconscious responds to awakened empaths like a sleeping giant stirring after centuries of silence. These sovereign mirrors walking among us generate what parapsychologists call morphic resonance, a field effect where one individual's integration makes it easier for others to do the same. The archetype of the wounded healer, once trapped in perpetual suffering, is evolving. The old empath archetype, the martyr, the silent absorber, the one who bleeds for others, is dying. And in its place emerges something astonishing: the sovereign mirror, the conscious catalyst. The empath no longer exists to carry the pain of the world, but to reflect its truth, to awaken transformation simply by being fully, powerfully themselves. Even artificial empathy in our technology reflects this shift. You can see it everywhere in AI systems, quietly learning to recognize human emotions, in algorithms designed to sense distress through digital patterns of speech, text, and tone. These are not coincidences. They are digital shadows of the empath's natural function. Technological mirrors built from humanity's collective need to be seen, understood, and reflected. The collective unconscious is speaking through every available channel, using both human and machine to mirror its own awakening. Modern mystics now appear on social media feeds, offering ancient wisdom in contemporary language. Shamanic insight finds new form inside therapeutic practices, while subtle, everyday magic disguises itself as practical coaching. Yet beneath the variety of appearances, all of these are expressions of one and the same archetypal activation: The empath's journey from wounded victim to awakened sovereign has become humanity's roadmap for evolving consciousness itself. And when multiple awakened empaths occupy the same space, something extraordinary happens. They create what Jung described as a constellation, an activated archetypal field, where truth vibrates so strongly that deception cannot survive. In that shared resonance, shadows can no longer hide, masks fall away, and authentic connection becomes the only possible language. This is what mass awakening looks like, not through conflict, not through force, but through resonance. The archetype is spoken. The age of unconscious absorption is ending, and the age of conscious mirrors has begun. Every empath who completes their individuation journey contributes to this growing field of awareness, this morphic network of transformation. Each one becomes a living update to the collective intelligence, rewriting the invisible code of human evolution. You are not merely healing yourself, you are updating humanity's operating system. Think of who you once were. Remember drowning in everyone's emotions, feeling crushed under the weight of their unspoken projections. That version of you could never imagine the grounded strength you now embody. Now, you stand sovereign. You wield conscious boundaries that have refined your sensitivity into precision power. Tomorrow, when someone attempts to cast their shadow onto you, you will not absorb it. You will reflect it back with calm, fierce compassion, a mirror forcing them to confront what they've disowned. This is no longer the world that once exhausted you. This is your new reality. Crowds that once drained you now energize you. Narcissists retreat from your unshakable truth. And that crushing anxiety you once feared has transformed into your intuitive early warning system, a compass pointing toward misalignment and projection. You've mastered what Carl Jung called individuation, the alchemical transformation of an unconscious victim into a conscious catalyst. And now comes the question, the same one every awakened empath must face. Will you use your nature to stay small and safe? Or will you dare to become the mirror that awakens everyone around you? The world is calling, aching for conscious empaths who have integrated their shadow and risen unbreakable. So ask yourself, what shadow will you stop carrying today? If you're ready to master the depths of Jungian psychology and step fully into your sovereign power, stay connected for more transformative insights. The empath was never meant to heal by absorbing pain. You were born to awaken consciousness itself.